Hello and welcome to I Talk to Ghosts, the podcast that brings the hauntings to you right conveniently into your home. I'm your spirited host, Jennifer, a professional medium and a teller of ghost stories. And those ghost stories tonight, dear listener, are going to be centered around haunted homes. I personally live in a haunted home myself. This is not the first one. And if you haven't listened to past episodes of I Talk to Ghosts, I have shared a few of my own personal experiences in my own home that are either unexplained or downright hauntings. So go back in the library of past episodes and find those, because I love sharing my own stories, but I also don't want to repeat myself too much. So go find them if you're interested. I also have a new in-studio spirit reading for you tonight, as well as make sure to join me at my seance table for a message from the spirits. During that time, I open the space to call a spirit close with the intention of connecting for someone who is listening to the podcast. And since you are, this message could be for you. That's later on in the podcast. But first, the spooky. Make yourself at home. The ghosts are going to join you right now. This story was submitted by Brittany. Thank you, Brittany, for sharing your story. I have a few stories about the house we are currently living in. My husband at the time and I bought a brand new house. Well, it was new to us. It was built in the 1960s. During that time, we welcomed my daughter in 2016. My husband traveled a lot for work. I was a young mom and semi-wimpy when it came to staying by myself with my daughter. Hello, anxiety. Anyway, there was one night when I was lying in bed and I heard two people talking in the kitchen. I froze in fear. I knew that it was just me and my 3-month-old daughter in the house, and she was in bed for the night. I checked her monitor, and she was okay. I finally got the courage to get up, but as soon as I reached the door, the talking stopped. I chose to ignore it and went back to bed. A few months later, my husband was traveling for work again, and I was in bed. It was around 3 or 4 a.m. All of a sudden, I heard a slam on my patio door. I knew I wasn't dreaming. I was awake. I was just lying there before I heard the noise. My dog even flew off the bed in fear to investigate. The rest of the night was quiet. A month later, I was in my daughter's room around 3 a.m. to soothe her. She was never a good sleeper, and I would constantly wake up during the night to tend to her. I was rubbing her back while she was lying in her crib, and all of a sudden, I felt a hand on my shoulder. That hand then traveled downward to rub my back. I jerked away and turned around to find absolutely nothing. I picked up my daughter, left her room, turned on all the lights, and decided right then and there to set boundaries. I told whoever it was to stop and that I didn't want this sort of activity in my house anymore. This was my house, and I wanted them gone. After a few months of no more activity, I think whoever or whatever that was in our house had moved on. I never told my husband because he's a skeptic. I still think about those events from time to time, and I'm really glad the activity stopped. This story was submitted by Brian. Brian, thanks so much for sharing your experience. My first real experience with ghosts would have been in my early childhood home in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, in the years around 1973 through 1979. I grew up with a sister only a few years younger than myself and a brother 8 years younger than me. Most of my ghostly experiences were shared with my younger sister, for during that age you could find us hand in hand laughing and playing together. If you happen to listen to the Angels episode, I shared my angel sighting story with Jennifer for that episode. Now, as young children before attending school in the cold great north of Minnesota, we spent the majority of our winters indoors. As small children, the house was a palace of adventure, so no corner was undiscovered. At the time, my sister and I shared a room, which in this house was the finished attic space. I'm sure you can picture it. Slanted ceilings, small odd-shaped closets that within them had smaller doors that led to empty rafter spaces. Now, our bedroom for the most part felt safe during the day, but the real activity, for whatever reason, didn't really happen until bedtime. Small, strange things. When it was time for bed, our parents would march us up the stairs in a fun but orderly fashion and tuck us into bed for the night. On most occasions, we would be fast asleep from the excitement of the day. But on those restless nights, we would be up in the dark, tossing and turning in our beds. On one of those restless nights, I was lying in my bed facing the stairs. Next to my bed sat an old wooden trunk, the type with a domed, arched top. It had metal side handles and a front metal latch. This old trunk was my toy box. That night, I was probably thinking about what toys were in there that I could play with, when all of a sudden, the side handles began to knock. Slow at first, and then picking up speed. After a moment, I gained my courage and ran downstairs to tell my dad. I told him I'm no longer sleeping upstairs, that the toy trunk handles were moving all on their own. With a slight grumble and a huff, my dad declared it was nonsense and to go back to bed. He never believed in ghosts, and he wasn't about to start believing now. I said, no way. Finally, my dad agreed to take me upstairs and stay next to me until I fell asleep. These were satisfactory terms for me. We returned to my room. I got in bed and immediately climbed behind my giant size of a dad and waited for the return of the moving handles. Sure enough, within a short time, the handles began to knock slowly at first, and then much faster. I quickly nudged my dad and asked in a whisper if he heard it. The next thing I knew, my dad was picking me up and carrying me down the stairs. He mumbled, "Yeah, you can sleep downstairs with us tonight." Let's try something new. You probably know my medium work by now, but did you know I also love to provide tarot readings as well? I absolutely love the messages the cards can offer of affirmation, inspiration, and guidance. If you are feeling called to see what messages are waiting for you, visit italktoghosts.com to book a reading with me. I can't wait to meet you. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. My guest this evening is Samantha. Samantha, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing this evening?
Good, thank you.
I am really glad that we're jumping in with this. I'm just curious about who is here for you. I'm feeling a mix of energy, and it feels like some people off to the side, like aunt or uncle energy and like grandparents. It doesn't, so I just love to start out with broad strokes there. And then, it does feel like mother, grandmother energy. I'm wondering if, she helped take care of you when you were younger.
Yeah, we definitely had a very close, family, sort of seeing each other very often.
Okay. And has your grandmother passed?
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a time when, like a distinct time where you can remember, like you were sick or you had a fever or tonsillitis or something like that where she took care of you?
I definitely, had some colds. My mom said I used to get pneumonia a lot when I would get sick. As a kid.
Okay. So maybe it's reference to that. She is showing me like the wet cloth on the forehead.
Oh, yeah. I definitely had a lot of that.
Okay. It feels like this is almost one of her go-to things. Like someone's sick, lay them down, put the cloth on their forehead. Okay. And did you help take care of her as she got older?
Not so much me, but I would say, my dad was definitely heavily involved with being the one that was with her a lot.
All right. And your dad is still with you?
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe this message is for him then, because it feels like she had a lot of burdens and someone was there for her very supportively and very dedicated. And it feels like she wants to just acknowledge that. Let me see if I could just pull this a little closer. Yeah, it feels like the sentiment was family felt like they were leaving her alone.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I think she just wants to acknowledge that and bring comfort there. That it was like it was complicated and there's no regrets about that with her. And there's understanding there. Yeah. And in fact, if anyone is still holding on to that, when they think of her, please let that go. Please, she's like, please let that go. It shouldn't be held on to. Has your grandfather passed away as well?
Yes.
Was he kind of an idea guy? It just feels like ideas. Like he just had a thought process to him and an excitement about him.
Yeah, he was definitely like an entrepreneur, on the go type of guy.
Yeah, kind of just, what about this? What about this? What about this?
He was always wanting to do something, let's go, let's do this, and what's next type of feel.
Do you get that from him? Do you have that personality too?
My husband in the background said yes.
He's like back there. Yeah, you do. Because as we're talking, your grandfather has this sense of pride about him. And he's like, that's my girl, with you. And it just feels like the energy is very similar and that you could relate on that level now. I don't know when you were younger if you felt that way or not, but he just sees you as a grown woman, like doing your thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And you like to do things your way?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I think he's laughing about that a little bit. I don't know if it's just because he finds it humorous or he was also that way. But he's kind of like, don't get in her way.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Okay. Sometimes I get really quiet because things come in as emotions, and then I have to kind of put words to it and context. He's saying there was something lacking when he was younger, and he never wanted to feel that way again.
I know that he grew up on the poorer side, I would say.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know a lot about his childhood, but I could see how that would be relevant.
It feels like that, but how he presents himself, and if you knew him as an adult, I don't feel like you would ever guess that.
No, definitely not.
Okay. Hey, did he have a pocket watch?
I don't know. I don't think he did.
Because as he was first coming through, I got this visual of it and this feeling of he thought it was neat, type of thing. Maybe ask and see if that's somewhere in the past. Okay. All right. Okay. Sometimes I get these random impressions that come through, and they may be connected to the people we're talking about, or it might be someone else. But someone was showing me their AOL inbox and how it was just full of junk, but they took it seriously.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see my grandmother probably, being fooled for every spam email left and right, and I even get emails from my dad now where he'll be like, is this real? Do I click on this?
Yeah, it's like, no, don't click on anything nowadays.
Yeah, don't do it.
That's like our PSA for the reading. But yeah, it's funny when I think this is the first grandparent that has come in with that technology side to them. A lot of times it's tea and baking, or but it feels like she was okay with that knowledge, but still, yeah, I think that inbox was a little overwhelming, and I'm hearing the ding, 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 ding. And I'm like, AOL, how old is this?
Yeah. And my mom has had her computer that she used to have.
Okay.
And just recently, we were just at her house last week, and I told her, I'm like, you really have to get a new computer. This thing is so ancient, it needs to go. You need to buy a new one. And, big letters across the screen. It's Norma's computer. I don't know how long she had that computer, but my mom's been using it. But I'm like, it needs to go. It does not work anymore.
I really think that our loved ones are always just kind of still with us, especially when we're talking about them, and she's just bringing it up to kind of wink at you a little bit. When you were over at her house, did she have, I'm seeing a kitchen that has the sink with the window behind it overlooking the backyard, and it feels like kids would play out there.
Yeah, she had that.
Okay. Because she's just kind of showing me she'd be doing the dishes, the kids would be outside in the back, so she can still keep an eye on them. It just feels like this moment that she found a calmness to it. It feels like a summer moment too, how it gets darker a little later, but then you have that long period of the blue light, Are there fireflies where you are? Where she was?
Yeah, we do have them.
Okay. Like, and yeah, just that nostalgia of like fireflies and crickets and just how calm it can be in the summer, and kids coming in and banging the door. She feels like a very kind woman with a lovely heart. I also see her as having opinions, though, and speaking her mind when needed. So it wasn't just all, oh, sweetie, oh, dearie, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. This is a specific thing, so I'm not sure if you would remember this or if it's going to connect exactly, but like this blue glass, it feels like a vase or something in her house. It's a very lovely color blue. It's this type of thing that would have mesmerized me as a child to look at it. Did she have something like that?
It sounds like something she would have had, so I would have to ask on that.
And then from there, it's kind of sliding into like the blue china or something like that. Like the type that has like the single color depiction on it. Like it's white and it's either red or it's blue. And it's patterned and like you can collect all of it.
Yeah.
Your grandfather who has passed, these two were married?
Yes.
It feels like they could have some sharp debates about them.
Yeah.
Your grandfather has not only is he an idea guy, but he just has a very sharp brain to him. And I feel like maybe sometimes that came out in his words a little and she would push back. It just feels like there was a little bit of, but they knew each other. You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Is there someone in your family who really struggles with indecision or worry or overthinking?
Yeah, we definitely have people that have a lot of like anxiety issues and stuff.
Okay. It's just coming up a little bit. Your family has a hard time letting things go. And I think just from the collective on the other side, they would really wish to put some light on that, not to like single it out and spotlight it, but a loving light, and to say that, gosh, you gotta let some of these things go, or they stop you in your tracks, you know, and you can't live your life as fully as you want to. You know, no one wants anyone to look back and say, oh gosh, how come I didn't do the thing, or how come I spent my energy on this, you know? So I don't know if that's more of a blanket statement that could apply to a couple of people, and if you're comfortable talking to them about it, or even having conversations with yourself of, hey, this doesn't feel good. How long am I going to hold on to this?
Yeah, definitely.
And what can I do to break this apart into manageable chunks that can then be tossed out the window? You know, okay. Someone was showing me horses in a big field. Did you like horses when you were younger?
Yeah, I did ride as a child a lot, and that was a big part of my childhood. And I made a lot of statements that I was going to have. I don't have horses as an adult, but it was a big deal that I was going to have horses as an adult.
Mm-hmm. Horses are a lot of work, and they're wonderful animals. But yeah, it's funny. This happens time and time again. I talk about something heavy, and then all of a sudden they're like, talk about the horses. And it's like, you know, and this is a great example of how did it feel when you were riding those horses, that passion and being that age, you know, where there is possibility, and you know, you're dreaming those things, and just tap into that a little bit if you can. I always feel like they're bringing things up for a reason, and we can learn from those things in our own personal way, like your own personal way. Was your grandmother there watching you? Because I feel like there's this fence and you're off, or the horses are over there.
Probably, but I think I was so consumed in just, you know, riding that adults, I don't know who's there.
You're right. That wasn't the important part. Yeah, I totally understand that. All right. I do want to see. Hold on, let me see. Your grandfather wants to say that was really important that you had the means to do that. And I think that that's part of his younger years coming in and saying, gosh, you know, if she wants to do something, if anyone wants to do anything in this family, we got to move heaven and earth so that can happen, because our passions are important. And kids are just important with both of them. Just the family and being able to witness the generations and being able to affect the generations in a positive way. They're just pouring in a lot of love there. And I feel like your grandfather, do you ever feel like he inspires you when you're working or anything like that? Like, where'd that come from? It feels like he likes to like edge in there and like just help inspire. And your grandmother's bringing in a lot of just supportive, emotional energy. She thinks you're darling, and just wants to lovingly support you in anything that you do. And she's definitely encouraging you to dream and dream big. And did she have a little bit of like, your grandfather is idea guy. Grandmother feels like more of a little bit more of a daydreamer, a little bit more of the, just it's softer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she was definitely like a bit of a homebody, but wanting, the family and her kids around, and wanting to, host parties, and so that everybody else was having a good time and having, having fun and food and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. It feels, that vicariousness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, she definitely, the children and stuff was big for her. Like my daughter, and when I had my son, she never got to meet him, but I did feel her presence one night when he was younger, in the middle of the night when he was fussing around there. So that was cool. But
yeah. Did you do holidays over at their house?
Oh yeah.
And did they have like Easter eggs for you and stuff?
Yeah, all that stuff. We always did all of the holidays, Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like Easter and Christmas were Thanksgiving. She's like, don't forget about Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Messages for you. Yes. Okay. I wrote down let go of loss. Let go of old ways of thinking, old things in general. Worry zaps your energy, and you are a natural leader and entrepreneur, and you can always get things done. So don't worry about the how or the why or money for that matter. It's like, but you've always done it. So why are you worried? Does that make sense? It's
that does, yeah.
Holding on to that worry and having it zap your energy and hold you back when it's never actually happened. After all this time of holding on to that, it just doesn't make sense after a while. So just kind of softly examine, just anything that is just pulling you down, so that you can use that energy to go forward instead. And so important to have fun. Just so important to have fun. And and they say you're brilliant. You're brilliant. So see yourself how other people see you, I think is a lovely message to pass along to you. And just if there's anything that's like, gosh, I'm just so tired of hanging on to this, just really examine it. And it's not easy to let go of patterns and things that we do, because after a while, like if you let go of it, there's this panic of, oh gosh, I forgot to worry. And then you slide back into it. But that's just how the brain works. And that's very human and very real for us. So, but just, that doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Just keep going and kind of little by little, shift. And because you're brilliant and you deserve brilliant things and you're going to continue to do brilliant things. And so all of that is just stuff that you can let go of, just absolutely let go of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, lovely. I love that when that happens. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. And I do ask my sitters if they have a personal ghost story that they would like to share. Do you have one?
Yes, I have a few things. Several different instances that all take place in one house.
Listener ghost story.
My parents have a lake house, and they've had it since I was a teenager, so it's been, I think it's been almost 25 years since they've had the place. But I have some instances that have happened many, many years ago, and then things that have happened just in the past couple weeks. So things that have happened in the past, some synchronicities, things that have been connected to when people are asleep there and dreaming and then wake up. So there's been an instance where my mom was sleeping upstairs, someone was sleeping downstairs. She had a dream about, some wild dream about her wedding. And at the same time that she was waking up from that dream, her wedding picture fell off the wall downstairs. So the relative downstairs the next day had said the picture fell off the wall, at whatever time at night. And then they realized that happened at the same time. So other things would happen. My notes here, so I remember. Other things would, fly off shelves. My personal experience that I've had there, the same experience that my mom has had there in a particular room when we've been sleeping in that bed. Both of us have woken up on different occasions, but we've woken up to things walking across the bed and feeling something sitting at the end of the bed. But, not in a creepy, didn't scare me. She doesn't sleep in that room anymore, but I continue to sleep in that room. There's another room that they call the red room, as in it's the scary room. But there's been several things that have happened in that room. My cousin, when she was younger, slept in there and woke up to what she said were hands coming out of the wall. And then more recently, a few weeks ago, my uncle slept in there and he woke up in the middle of the night and I guess he was yelling, and my mom had woken up and heard him. He said that he heard someone telling him, and he believes he was fully awake, he wasn't in a dream. He heard someone yelling to him, telling him to stop doing something. And then he looked over, and the same area where the hands came out of the wall, what he said was looked like some type of portal appeared, and a woman's face appeared and told him to be quiet. Say, shh, be quiet, be quiet. And then it all sort of just fizzled off and disappeared. On that same weekend, when they were retelling the story about what had happened, there was a little door, which was the other side of the wall where that happened, and the latch door popped open. So little weird things around that area. In that same room recently, a couple weeks ago, my aunt was sleeping and she woke up to what sounded like on the grates on the floor, it sounded like someone had ran their fingers up and down it, even though, no one was there. Just a few weeks ago, I was staying in one of the rooms, and my 4-year-old was sleeping in the bed with me, and he woke up in the middle of the night and pointed to the corner of the room and said, "Look." He said, look, it's black and red." And I'm scrambling for my phone, to get my flashlight. And then he went back to sleep. So he, of course, could have been dreaming, but he's not really a sleepwalker or talks in his sleep. So that was weird. You think if there's been other things, but there's always some sort of activity happening in that house over the last more than 20 years.
Wow. Yeah, it feels like if you're gonna go, enjoy it. It's gonna come with something. What's gonna happen? Yeah. Adventure.
Everybody gets their little experience there.
Well, yeah. Oh my goodness. So many questions. Do you know the history of the property? Has it always been this way since your family has owned it, or?
When they bought it, it was just one single story, and they had the house lifted and they put a basement in. And okay. I guess the house itself was originally part of an army barracks, and it was it was the second half, and the other half of the barracks is a few houses down. So there's definitely history of a lot of, different people being in that house in general. And then I personally think there's a lot of history just on that lake alone, because there was Indian massacres during the times when, the Europeans were fighting with the Native Americans, and there's an island there that they all sort of got taken out on. So I think there's just a lot of energy in that area in general.
Yeah. Sounds like a lot of emotional history, transient energy with the army. Then as soon as you said lake, it's like, oh, sometimes water seems to amplify things or record things, or at least boost the signal, where the paranormal is concerned. And it just feels like there could be multiple elements at play here. But overall, what does the vibe feel like when you're there? Obviously, it's always startling when something happens, or especially if we're woken up at night. But, sometimes it's like you walk into a place and you feel unwelcome, or that oppressive feeling of being watched and things like that. Does it just feel like there's just something interacting with you in a more neutral way?
For my mom, she says she will never personally sleep there alone. She's only slept there alone a few times, and she says she gets too scared.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I think it's hard to differentiate, because it's a place where, you go and it's the 4th of July and everyone's having a party and this and that.
Yeah.
So you don't always get the opportunity to sort of be there when it's very quiet and still. So you don't have a very long opportunity to be creeped out, because there's so many people there doing things.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It makes total sense, because I think that when we're living our human loud lives, it's very easy to walk right past it, or, not pick up on it because we're preoccupied, we're distracted and things like that. I do want to circle back to the story of something walking across the bed. Do you know if that felt more like an animal or a misplaced human?
To me, it felt like, and there's no animals there that could have been mistaken for it, but it felt like the feeling of a cat walking across. But then at the bottom of the bed, it felt like someone sitting, and I could see the bed imprint.
Wow. It could have been ghost cat meeting ghost owner. Maybe that was an echo in time where the person would sit on the bed, and the cat would. and would come and meet. And
Yeah.
like, that was just something that repeated and repeated a lot. And I know my cat is a creature of habit and would definitely, it's almost like we have our patterns of things. And it's like, we're always here together and that sort of thing.
Oh, I know that. My cat is 5 o'clock every morning on the bed.
Thank you for your service. Well, wonderful. It sounds like your family is there a lot. And like, have you ever gone there during the spooky time of year? Like, fall is a wonderful time to be in nature.
They close it up in September, and I haven't been there in the winter since I was a teenager. So, yeah, I think it would kind of be fun to go there in the winter and feel the difference between what it feels like being in there, and because the lake itself is no one's there, everyone's, so it would be interesting just to feel the vibe of being there when everyone's off the lake and you're one of the only lights lit up, across all the houses.
Yeah. And the other thing, motion cameras inside. Cameras are cheap nowadays. That would be a really interesting thing. But, some people, I could see them screaming at me, don't give it more attention. But it's like, you're already paying attention. But also, I find that sometimes you get the reaction of, I'm not going to perform for you, and everything dies down. Thank you, Samantha. You have a wonderful, curious, creative, energetic family. And I'm just so happy to share this with you because from my perspective, I get to feel all this and it's like instant knowing you. And I just appreciate that so much. And I really appreciate that anyone is open to me just coming in and walking through your family. But lovely, lovely family. And this has been a delightful time. So thank you so much.
Thank you as well.
Would you like a free spirit reading with me and record your reading for the podcast? Sign up for your chance to be selected by visiting italktoghosts.com/guest. And as an added bonus, if you don't want to leave your reading up to chance, I'll let you in on a secret. There's a discount offer to book a private session with me, so you can book a date and time for certain. Visit italktoghosts.com/guest for more details. Hello and welcome back to I Talk to Ghosts. I have a message from the spirits this evening, so thank you for being with me at my seance table. Tonight, as I work this evening, I have with me the stone serpentine. This is a very creamy, jade-looking stone. Kind of looks snake-like in nature, and I think that's why it has the name that it does. But this stone is really good at helping promote balance with mind, body, and spirit. It promotes a sense of clarity and calmness, and some say it helps you connect to higher levels of consciousness. So if you are diving into exploring spiritual growth, serpentine is a wonderful stone to have near you. I've opened the space to allow a spirit to come close. Tonight I have with me someone's father. He's showing me a measuring ruler, which always makes me think, did he work in architecture or engineering? It's a bit of a personal symbol for me. Yeah, I see a draft table now. He definitely worked in some kind of architectural capacity, but I'm also seeing references to the oil industry, and he's sharing with me his house. Someone liked to cook because it has a distinct smell to it, coriander or something. I feel that he had a love for antiques and had to travel for work and often brought items back with him from his travels. He feels like a good man, but I think you would say that he was a little emotionally unavailable. It feels like he did work a lot and he was away on trips and things like that, but he wasn't an overly emotionally expressive man. But as I say that, he's showing me like a Barbie dream house, and I think that he's like, oh, but I always made sure she happily received the things that she asked for in childhood, and I think that was a way of him expressing his love. His message for you tonight is he knows he wasn't the easiest father to have, and you question whether or not he approves of you, and he wants to say he absolutely does, and that he is proud of you and he loves you so much. And don't ever feel like when you think of him and you look at your life from what would be his lens, that in any way you should project his expectations onto yourself. Does that make sense? He loves who you are and the choices you made because they're yours, not his. And that is very important that you know that he is proud of you, that he does approve, and he loves you very, very much. He doesn't ever want you to have a critical eye on yourself due to his perspectives that he had in life. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that. If this message connects for you, please reach out as always, because I really do love to hear when it does. Thank you. Are you enjoying your spooky visit? Please support the podcast by liking, sharing, and subscribing. The ghosts may be talkative, but they are lousy at marketing, so every click helps. Tell your friends, and please leave a kind review so that others may join us. The spirits and I thank you. And with that, dear listener, we've reached the end of this episode of I Talk to Ghosts. I hope you've enjoyed my spirit work that I shared with you this evening. And if you enjoy listening to my medium readings, perhaps consider getting a reading of your own. I never like to promote too much because I do really feel like someone should be called to a reading, feel compelled. It should feel like, yes, this is the medium for me. Yes, this is the right time. And in my heart, I feel open to messages I might receive. If all those boxes are ticked off for you, yeah, please consider having a reading with me. You can find out more information at italktoghosts.com. I also hope that you enjoyed the ghostly tales of haunted homes that I shared with you this evening. Do you live in a haunted house? I would love to hear your stories, so please reach out anytime. In the meantime, wherever you wander off to in this world or the next, just remember, come back and visit with me. Have a lovely evening and good night.